It's been a journey that's taken him from suburban Toronto to Huntington Prep, then Lawrence, Kansas, and now Michael Grange here to Times Square and the epicenter of basketball. On the eve of the NBA draft, are we really looking at a scenario where a Canadian's going first overall for the second straight June?
I think so. I think so because Andrew Wiggins is the most talented player in this draft. And if you're a team like the Cleveland Cavaliers, can you really take that risk of passing on a guy with that kind of upside and knowing that if he develops, if his talent matches his skills or his skills match his talent over time, you're looking at maybe the transcendent player out of this pretty transcendent potentially draft class. So if you're Cleveland, you can't mess that up. You've got to take him. I think he's going number one. And for Canada, it's a story we've been waiting for a long time because really, he is Canada's first ever basketball prodigy. We've been watching him that long.
The superstar prospect, it's been a while in the making. Could be 3 Canadians going in the first round. That's another story we'll get to in a moment. But first, the sweepstakes. It's really between Wiggins and Jabari Parker. I'm not a Duke guy, but I'm big on Jabari. And he said today, look, it doesn't matter to me whether or not I go first overall. He also revealed to us that the Bucks told him they would take him number 2 if he's still on the board. There could still be a lot of wheeling and dealing even before we get to the draft floor on Thursday night.
Yeah, talking to people in the league, it's very, very fluid as compared to other years. I think you've got multiple teams with multiple picks in the first round. That's always lends itself to trading. You've got the whole LeBron James sweepstakes, which at least gives a hint of some movement potentially.
And we're in New York. Let's not forget Carmelo either.
And Carmelo either. So I think there's a lot of things that could happen. And the other thing that's happened also is you've got Joel Embiid, the Kansas University teammate who broke his foot, had surgery. He, I think, was the presumptive number 1 pick before that. So that sort of added another layer into the mix. Add it all up, I think it's going to be exciting. I think you are going to see a lot of people coming at Cleveland with that number 1 pick. We've heard Orlando offering number 4 and number 12, plus Aaron Aflalo. Thank you. And and I think Philadelphia could make a move if they think that's what they need to do to get Wiggins at number 1, who they really like. So it should be a lot of fun, but I do think Wiggins is going to have that number 1 pick beside his name.
So Wiggins will be the first Canadian without a doubt that goes. Nick Stauskas may join him as a lottery pick, and then Tyler Ennis becomes an intriguing prospect. We'll get into the Canadiana history tomorrow. But where do you see this kind of shaping down and shaking out for these 3 Canadians?
Nick Stauskas is the guy whose star has risen in some ways most surprisingly. He was a fringe first-round pick at the beginning of this year, maybe not even. Even at the end of the season as Big 12 Player of the Year, he was a late first-round pick. But through the interview process, I know for a fact he's shone. And then his skill set, which is he's I think the best shooter in this draft as the NBA becomes more three-point centric. That has kind of elevated his status, and they've seen this guy in workouts, a little more athletic, able to get to the basket. I think there's a very good chance he goes to Charlotte at 9. I don't think he goes below Orlando at 12. Tyler Ennis has almost had the opposite experience. It's not like he's fallen, but you remember in the middle of last year, this was a guy who was all of a sudden in the lottery. He was winning games at the buzzer for an undefeated Syracuse team. The workout process hasn't been quite so kind to him. I think there's a lot of interest for him at Orlando at 12. I think his floor is probably Utah at 23, I'm told, and that could put the Raptors and him at number 20 right in his sweet spot.
Going back to Wiggins as we wrap up, he says he's anxious. He wants to know where he's going. He said that's going to be my destiny for at least the next 4 years. Jabari Parker again says he doesn't care where he ends up. It's interesting with 1 and 2 just how different the psyche of both of these guys are going into the draft, isn't it?
Well, I think because maybe there's a lot of talk that Jabari Parker wants to go to Milwaukee. It's closer to home in Chicago. It's maybe a more ready-made fit for him.
Right.
So, there was talk that even he tanked his workout so he wouldn't get taken by Cleveland. I think for Jabari Parker, he's playing possum a little bit. He'd be happy to go to number 1 too.
Wiggins said his college experience helped him get ready for the pros. He said when you're treated like a rock star the way we were at Kansas, that gets you ready for the next level. On Thursday, we'll find out exactly where he goes. We'll have all of it for you right here on sportsnet.ca. But for now, for Michael Grange, Arash Madani saying so long from Times Square in the heart of New York City.